Welcome to self-discoverywisdom.com, formerly known as Self-Discovery Media. On these podcasts, you're going to hear people who speak from the heart. They've taken the journey in life. Many things have happened to them, but they've changed it to happening for them. And in their strength, their courage, they've discovered their abilities and their wisdom, and they are now sharing it here with you. Do enjoy each show. We bring it to you with love and knowing that it's going to help you on your journey of life. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Quantum Spirituality right here on selfdiscoverywisdom.com. I'm your host, Sarah Troy. My guest today is James Cannon. We're going to be talking about frequency and frequency healing. Frequency is a forward-thinking wellness brand and movement established to optimize mental health. But not just mental health. It's about lifting up our consciousness up to a higher level of vibration, of frequency, where we actually can connect with the universal wisdom. It's all obtainable, folks. He said he started cultivating in 1918, I hope not, 2018, to stay sober from alcoholism, depression, and anxiety. And after years of experience, he realized that frequency products to help others battling the same issues, elevate consciousness, and also have fun. It took years to design the best products that are multi-purpose for everyone, having a background with healing and sound currents, mantras, and he decided to implement that all into a growing space. So working with the highest quality genetics and the high frequency environment, his product of higher frequency above the rest. So what is this frequency forward thinking? Well, it's a brand movement established to optimize mental health. And the founder and chief mushroom cultivator started this game-changing venture on his own healing. And out of the team of experts and experienced medical people, Frequency has worked with mushrooms and other natural psychedelics for years, understanding the profound healing effect, excuse me, and benefits all those powerful spiritual modalities. Sounds like I need one right now. We are passionate, or they are passionate about potential and positive impact, mood, reduce anxiety, depression, improve cognitive function, and increase overall better health. And they provide accurate information, answers, and questions to have this exciting new trend that incorporates ancient medicine. Well, that's the thing, folks. All of this has been around since the beginning of time. We just haven't known how to tap into it and how to really use it or understand what it really does mean. Frequency is that higher consciousness that we all are trying to achieve, or those that understand the importance of it, and that collective consciousness from the universe, from all around us, that energy, that frequency that runs through everything is there to enlighten us and to show us our true potential that we really only scratched the surface on. So welcome to the show, James.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I think everybody gets what I call the tap on the shoulder or the cosmic 2x4. And, always, alcoholism, depression, all of this very often go hand in hand. You drink because you're depressed, and then you're depressed because you drink. And then it is that lack of connection, isn't it? It's that feeling like, where do I belong? Or what is the meaning of life? Or how do I cope with all this oppression around me? What was it for you?
What that made me like wake up or get hit by the two by four? Was
Yeah.
there a moment? Was there a
It
moment in
wasn't a nudge,
time?
nudge, wink, wink. It was a 2x4.
Might have been an axe. I don't know, or a sledgehammer. A sledgehammer. Um, well, I guess maybe I'll touch on my backstory quickly. I don't want to bore people with that, but there's all think necessity is the mother of invention, I guess, right?
Mm-hmm.
So not that we invented anything,
Discovered.
but just discovered, right? Revealed, discovered. But I now live in Topanga, California, which is a very spiritual environment. As you can see behind me, we're in nature, which is, nature itself is medicine, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I had a very successful career in Florida. I grew up in Chicago, but I ended up living in Florida for quite some time, and started a film career as a very young man at like 20 in the 80s. And I got, I grew up Lutheran. I grew up very, Protestant and Puritan, and had all these values. And then, was just like anybody else. There wasn't the time that we're in now wasn't, obviously around, and I didn't know any other way of living other than chasing the capitalist American dream of
Mm-hmm.
more, more, more. The shows I watched on television were, shows where we showed mom, making breakfast in high heels and, pearls, and Billy or whatever being a really good boy in school, and dad, wearing a felt hat and a suit and driving a Ford and a picket fence. And of course, that's programmed into our mind of what happiness is, right?
Mm.
So I got into, first I was a musician, and then I flowed into the filmmaking world, and it just felt really natural to me. I started my own company at 22,
Mm.
and within a few years, I was self-taught and what have you. But it was a very natural business to me. I enjoyed it. I became very successful at it. I had one of the biggest and unique production companies probably in the state for a very long time. Very successful. Had many rooms of awards. Shot most everything that came through my area I was involved in. I was, doing big national shows, commercials. People in Los Angeles were coming in and started flying me around the world to do projects. So I was working working a lot,
Living the
and
dream.
exactly. That's exactly where I was going with this. So living the dream, and then had children young, and then was divorced young,
Hmm.
and was traveling quite a bit. But I was very lonely. I was very lonely. I was living in a lot of hotel rooms, and I was on the road quite a bit. And part of the culture, especially in the town I was living in the area, and the obviously the culture of the film business being high intensity and lots of pressure, and lots of creative energy, and very intelligent minds. There was a lot of alcohol, right? And
Yes.
and that was all really the only that was obviously accepted. But this is the days of happy hour every
Mm.
day. This is at the end of your day you go to the bar. That was every day. Like everybody
Hmm.
did that back then to settle down, reduce your stress, whatever, right? And I found that alcohol was sort of meditative for me. It
Hmm.
actually, I'm a Gemini, and I had an extremely active mind. I mean, everybody tells me they have an active mind, but I don't know how you rate minds and thoughts, but I had a lot of them, and I was very scattered. I would have a lot of energy, and I noticed if I had a couple glasses of wine, I was actually calm,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And when I got into these states, I became more courageous. I became more creative. I
Yes.
became more social. So it worked for me for a very long time. It was an asset. I could talk to that girl. I could create a script. I could, go after a job. I would do things that were somewhat daring, that I was too afraid to do sober, I guess,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
And again, this is all when you're not in the world of understanding how any of it works. I didn't know. And I came out of a culture, in Chicago. Everybody drank. Nobody was allowed to drink soda, right? But everybody in my family, my cousins, everybody, had cases of beer we had a
Mm.
whole refrigerator in the basement that was allotted for beer, and they would have beer drinking contests, and everybody drank beer and watched the Cubs or the Bears, football, and that was life, right? So that's what I knew. And so I mean, even on our shoots, which obviously film is a very extremely stressful business, we
Yes.
have a thing called craft service where you have all the snacks and stuff. And when we would wrap the shoot, they would literally turn the craft service table around and became a bar. This is no joke. Those were the days, right?
Yes.
And then we drank on airplanes, flew first class. It was just common. So I was in that world, and I realized, much later, and I'll touch on it later in the conversation. But as a child, I was just a very shy person, but
Mm,
by design, believe it or not, people find this really hard to believe. I'm sort of still shy. I'm an introvert, even though
yes.
a lot of people know me and I go out and stuff, but I like my alone time. But so alcohol was covering the fear of this shy little boy, really.
Your
So
courage.
it was my liquid courage. When I was in a band, I played in lots of clubs at a very young age, 16, and I couldn't even get on stage to play my guitar. It would shake so much. I was so nervous. So if I drank a few beers, I was good, right? So now it became not only, sort of necessary, if you will, to
Yeah.
operate. And again, unconsciously, right? It just,
Hmm.
because I wanted to calm down, right? And so that was a big chunk of my life, drinking. And again, not only accepted, kind of like if you didn't drink, people thought you were strange, like what's wrong, are you an alcohol, so it was like not only acceptable, it was like
Taboo.
protocol
Yeah. Yeah.
to, yeah, on top of it, right?
Hmm.
Because everybody's going. So if you go to a football game and you're drinking water, people back then thought you had a disease or something. They were like, well, are you pregnant? Like, why are you not drinking? You know what I mean? It was very
Yes.
strange, right? But so of course you're gonna, oh, okay, so it was really hard to escape that. But like they say, eventually I got into the AA, system, because it was, it helped me quite a bit. But there was a saying in AA, something like alcohol is fun. It starts off as fun, and then it's fun with problems, right? Because
Mm,
then you're drinking too much, you're forgetting what you're doing, you're texting people you shouldn't be texting, you're passing out, you're late, and, so then you start having problems, and then it goes from fun, you know, fun with problems to just problems, right?
yes.
And so I battled it for a very long time. I got a DUI. I don't remember the year. It was years ago, probably around the age of 40 or late 30s, and that kind of shook me up for a minute. And I had to do all the processes they do in America for you to get your license back and go to
Mm,
AA and all this stuff. But so I tried it for a while, and then you know, I would go up maybe on a date, or somebody's drinking, and then all of a sudden I'm drinking and I'm right back into it.
right.
And any type of addiction, especially alcoholism, I speak. And by the way, everything I talk about it, I speak from my experience.
Yep.
This is not necessarily everybody's truth, but they in my particular instance, if you quit drinking for a month, 3 months, or what have you, the second you pick it back up, it's not only that you left off where you were, you
Hmm.
actually, it's worse. It's as if you've been drinking the entire 6 months. So it
Mm,
actually, the brain is already ahead of you, and it gets worse and worse and worse, right? But I wasn't, I just, and again, where I was living, there wasn't really yoga, there really wasn't
right.
any spiritual modality frequency. Well, I mean, that's the meditation. What, huh? you know
That's
that's,
for
I mean,
weirdos.
yeah, I mean, that's some guy in the Himalayan mountains, right? So anyway, it got worse and worse. And then, I like to think I'm a very strong-minded individual, because I was an entrepreneur and I was working in these extreme shoots and extreme conditions under extreme pressure. And I would not only do well, it was, I would thrive in that environment. So
Hmm.
I was really puzzled how this had started having a control over me, like how
Mm,
I could put down other things, I could stop other things I could do. I was in what I thought control of myself, but this one thing was, kept getting me into trouble. And I would, like I was saying, I would not drink for a while, but I was really miserable because I lived my life. Then the fear would come back, then the anxiety would come back, and
mm,
I would be just white knuckling it. So
yes.
I would wake up in the morning and go, okay, just don't drink today, just don't drink. And of course, as somewhat advanced minds like ourselves, we know sorry about the helicopter. We know that um, whatever you think about, you give power to,
Yeah.
right? So
Yes.
if you think about like not doing something over and over and over again, of course you're pulling it in, right? You're gonna
Yes.
do it, right? So, and I was living alone most of my life, so I didn't really have any support in anything. And by the way, that's good, but back in the day, a support system is important. So anyway,
Mm.
it became worse and worse. And then it finally, it became, I remember going from, a heavy drinker with a problem to an alcoholic.
Right.
I could actually, maybe some of the people listening to this can, because you're always questioning yourselves. Everybody's
Mm.
like, oh, I can quit anytime.
Yeah.
Oh, I got this, whatever, whatever. But I started learning about how the body works in the detox process and the cravings and stuff. And I just remember that shift going from, wanting to drink to all of a sudden it's the switch flip to having to drink,
Yeah.
you know. So I started waking up, shaking, from the detox and
Hmm.
extreme anxiety. And I don't know if you've ever had, a real anxiety
Oh,
attack.
yeah.
It's like a real one. It's not.
Hmm.
It's like you're
Hyperventilating.
not. You're. It's you. You don't think you're dying. You know you're dying. Like
Yeah.
you. And then you know, if I take a drink, it would literally go away instantly, right? So the shakes would go away, I would calm down. So, towards the end, I was drinking just to be normal,
Mm.
right? Because if I wasn't drinking, I was just a neurotic. My body was flipping out. The nervous system was just, shooting sparks out. And it was really crazy. So, I knew that I'm starting to drink early in the morning and, there's going to be, there's a problem, right? So, along the way, I had, this is 2014 and I was battling it. And the thing is, like when you battle something like that, it's in your head and
Yes.
it's a real battle.
Oh,
It's
it
a
is.
battle, battle, battle. So I'm like, I wasn't, you're not focused on your career. You're not focused. It's like the number one, again, that thought giving power to, it's the number one thing that is you're thinking about not doing, right? So I had, I would go on binges. I would binge and then I would stop or whatever. Um, and anyway, I had stopped drinking for a couple months. Again, living alone. I didn't have a spiritual practice. Yes, I would go to AA meetings, but from where I was from, they were just different. They weren't really loving
Yeah.
and they were kind of just complaining sessions of people. And
Hmm.
I felt
No
more
solutional. Hmm.
no, yeah, I mean some, but I felt like ooh when I would leave, right?
Yeah.
That's not, this is in Florida. It's a different, and I'm not picking on Florida. I'm just, but anyway, it wasn't really working for me. Anyway, I got a gig and I got a job in out of town, and I wasn't working much because I was, struggling with this mental problem, and um, so anyway, I get this job. It's out of town. It's an international commercial, and the producer, it's a woman. She says, "Okay, when you come in, meet me at the bar." And I said, "Just so you know, I'm not drinking." She goes, "Oh, come on, come on." I said, "No, I'm just, we got a big shoot in the morning or whatever, you know." And she goes, "All right, whatever." So anyway, I get there and, I meet her in the bar and, she sits next to me with a drink in her hand and one for me. Anyway, it was like, it's just,
Mm. Yeah.
anyway, eventually,
The
I,
devil
I,
is calling you.
well, not only calling me, they're like,
Yeah.
and which is not cool, obviously. But anyway, so I drank the drink and man, bam, I was right back into it. Like
Yes.
it's like they say, it was if the demon just went
Yeah.
poof.
Hmm.
And so obviously I continued to drink there. That night I go back to my room and I drink the entire mini bar. and then the next morning's the job. Well, I'm in no physical mental health. I'm drunk, still.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't work, and it was this big thing, and they fired me. And then I went back to my room, continued to drink, and then I had to figure out how to get home. I'm wasted, and anyway, long story short, I got back. I was living in this tiny little room. I had a house in Florida, but I ended up in my little rental place in Venice Beach, California. It's tiny. It's a one, studio, and I basically went on. I don't even remember, a 2 or 3 month binge, and it just I pulled this. Then I just drank all day, every day for a few months, and I'm telling you all this for a reason. And
Mm-hmm.
anyway, one day I was laying in bed, and I started hallucinating, and I read that that's like the really deep, that then it's bad, right? I started going into hallucinations. Excuse me. I started hearing things. I started, like, my body. It was something was shifting,
Yeah.
and I'll never forget. I don't know how to describe it other than I felt my life force leaving me.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I felt like I don't know if you've ever had like sleep paralysis. I never have, but I couldn't move,
Mm-hmm.
and I just felt like it leaving me, and I was like, I'm dying. This is it. I'm actually, because it's a type, when you're drinking at that level, it's a type of suicide. Like,
Yes.
we don't kill her. We don't love ourselves. We know this is it,
Yeah.
and we're killing ourselves. It's just a matter of when,
When.
right?
Mm.
Um, so it was at that point, I did manage to get control of my body again, and I picked up a phone and I called somebody, a friend, and I said, I'm in bad shape. Will you find me a rehab? And she did, and she took me in, and it was my fourth rehab, and they took me in and they said, you got to turn around and take him to the hospital. He's way too bad for rehab right now. So I had to go uh, to UCLA and spend a few days. I actually spent my birthday in there
Mm-hmm.
in the detox unit, detoxing. So, you know, anyway, I
In
went
hindsight, a
to
good birthday present.
what you think is the worst day of your life is actually your best day, right?
Yes.
Because it's the day I made a change, right?
Yes.
So I went to rehab, and it was humiliating, and but that's the ego.
Mm-hmm.
But I just remember and I went to I didn't have any money left. My kids weren't talking to me.
Right.
I didn't have, my insurance wouldn't cover it. I had to put it on one credit card. I mean, I had to put rehab on my credit card. I mean, it was like, really. But anyway, I was like, and I'm still in a fog. All I knew is I made the decision, in laying in that hallucinatory state. It
Mm-hmm.
was literally a moment, life or death.
Right.
And I
Time to
decide,
choose.
and I had to. It's like I make the analogy, like, problems are like water. They come up to your ankles, you still wade through the water. Then the water comes up to your knees, and
Mm.
oh, I got this. Then it comes up to your waist, and you're like, oh, you kind of ignore it. Yeah, I'm good. It comes up to your chest. You're like, it's a little more difficult, but finally it's here, and you got
Yeah.
to swim or drown, right?
Right.
That's exactly what happened. So anyway, day by day, I just know I needed to dry out, and I'd been in rehabs 4 times or 3 or 4 times before. But anyway, I came in with a whole different. I went to rehab in Malibu, and I just remember looking at the schedule, and I go, I'm doing everything they're doing. I'm doing 110%. Like, I'm not ever, ever, ever coming back to this place.
Right.
Never, never again. Right. So I get out, and then I'm back in this one room. I'm back in my head, which is, the head is what got me into this
Yeah.
thing. It's not a,
Yeah.
it's not a drinking problem. It's a thinking problem, right?
Yes.
Right. So once you lift the fog, which is, what rehab did for me, is finally I started, clearing just getting the pollution out of my head. And I started, starting to feel, think, and clearly. And, of course, now I'm a virgin baby. I've never really felt emotion. I've never really
Mm-hmm.
felt anything. So, because I've always, anytime you're a little stressed, you just have a drink. Anytime you're
Exactly.
happy, you have a drink. Every time you're, romantically involved to drink. So now it's a whole new world. So now I have to learn to reprogram the mind, right? And I dove into AA heavily. I had to go a couple times a day because I didn't want to sit alone and pick up a drink, because
Mm-hmm.
relapse is, I don't know, 97% people relapse.
Yes.
It's like some crazy amount, because that's the brain's still programmed, right?
Right.
For that chemical in the body. So then along the way, I discovered Kundalini yoga. I don't know if that's there, but I just happened to live in Venice, right down the street from one of the best Kundalini yogic science places in the world. It's all about the mind. It's breath work. It's all the modalities in one. It's the ancient philosophy. And in there, we talked about a lot of it was sound currents, frequencies,
Mm-hmm.
vibrations. Your thoughts are vibrations. All this
Everything.
advanced,
Mm.
all this advanced science, what we call advanced science now, is ancient. They've known it, and we
Mm-hmm.
practiced it in our chanting, things, and of course the yoga practice itself, physical stuff, is extremely hard, but it's controlling the mind that you
Yes.
can't. We hold poses for very long times in Kundalini, and you're like, are you serious? We're doing this, but then you learn how the mind can actually not only do it, but kicks into another
Yeah.
compartment of the brain that
Yeah.
allows you to do it. The runners, the marathon people, they always say the first mile is the hardest, right? Once they kick into the other
Mm-hmm.
nervous system, the other part of the brain, that which we never do, then that's where bliss is. That's where the real
Mm.
control is, right? So I started, learning that.
Rhythm.
And
Mm-hmm.
rhythm. Well, but the body's an insane thing, and you start to break these neural pathways of
Old patterning.
these things that we think we can't do,
Right.
right?
Exactly.
Because that's a story, right?
Exactly. An
So
old patterning there that has to be broken.
yep. And so when I started getting in a whole new world, because I was I had to change everything. It wasn't really hard because I didn't have anything,
Right.
right? Didn't have any friends, I didn't have any
Yep.
money, I didn't have any gigs, I didn't have anything. So now my job is to learn
Rebirth.
about me, and
Yes.
build a whole, and of course you can't think about the whole picture. You won't do it. It's too massive, right? You just do, okay, what am I doing today? What am I
Mm-hmm.
doing today? Like, what's right in front of me, right? So I got deeply involved in the yoga community, the Kundalini yoga community, breath work, and all this stuff. And then, of course, I was still going to AA, and I started meeting people. Now, we become our environment. Now, my
Mm.
environment was not a bar or sitting alone
Yes.
in a one room drinking. My world was, I'm with conscious thinking people that obviously know way more than me. And I'm learning, learning, learning. And my life started really shifting. And in that time and space of that, I started hearing about ayahuasca, and DMT, and these ceremonies, and getting to the root of, drinking is the medicine, right?
Mm-hmm.
Drinking is, um it's like the warning light of your dashboard on your car,
Yeah.
right? It's flashing, but what's making it flash, right?
Mm.
Where's the warning light coming from, right? Why are you drinking, right? What's the deal? So you have to address that. And so, against my AA sponsors and people, which don't recommend these sorts of practices. This again is 8 years ago, I think. Eight, yeah. I went into my first ayahuasca ceremony, and I sat with a shaman, and
Mm-hmm.
I took this ancient brew and an ancient type of ritual. I didn't know anybody, didn't know what I was doing, and it just blew my head off. Like, it just exploded and took, the etch a sketch of my brain, which was
Mm-hmm.
this huge whatever, and just reset it. And I started seeing how everything is connected, how we're
Yes.
all, one conscious web of consciousness, how life is just beautiful and magical and spiritual, and how the
Mm-hmm.
soul. I just started kind of seeing a little bit about everything, and
Mm-hmm.
the cells in my body. And then I started seeing, the fears and why I was afraid, and
Mm-hmm.
and then most of our fears are not most of them, it's like 97% of our fears are an illusion.
Yes. Or all, yeah, all
They don't,
systemic
they,
patterning in there, but yes, they're
well,
not
but
reality, your
they're
reality.
not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all. Not at all. There's a difference between danger and fear, right?
Yes.
But they're all, coming from childhood or
Mm.
whatever. But I started going into this, and then along with my, Kundalini practice and stuff, I started, really getting into it. And the people that were going to these ceremonies were highly intelligent, highly creative people, getting new ideas, cracking the programming that we have of capitalism. And this is where, like, most new ideas come from, are these LSD, ayahuasca, mushroom
Yeah.
type psychedelic journeys, because they get us out of this, basic, operating
Human thought
system.
opens up to
Well, it's not
soul
even,
talk.
yeah, yeah,
Yes.
correct.
Mm.
You're tapping into the infinite wisdom of the quantum,
Absolutely.
right? And
Yes.
we're just a vessel, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, I really got into it. I'm kind of a nerd at heart anyway, and I started, I'm just fascinated by this. Still fascinated. The more I learn, the more I know I don't know anything. Right? It's infinite. But I'm getting to the reason that we started, frequencies. In along these modalities, we were doing, I went to, hundreds of sound baths
Yes.
and chanting, and I was like, why are we chanting this? What is this about? And then I started realizing most religions have a chanting, right?
Yes.
And then you start
So does
recognizing
nature.
that's right, 100%. And then, these frequencies of the chanting are chanting of openness and spirituality and protection.
Mm.
And this is science now. Like, these certain
Yes.
frequencies affect the heart,
Yes.
these certain frequencies affect your thoughts. And by the way, all thoughts, every single thought is a neural pathway firing, and that's a frequency,
Yep.
right? Right. And music, obviously, and
Yes.
string theory, right? String theory is like every little molecule comes from a mini vibrating guitar string, right?
Mm.
So everything is frequency, good, bad, indifferent, whatever. That's out there. It's how the world communicates, is through frequency. It's
Yes.
data, it's information, right? So I, along the way, 5 years ago, through an ayahuasca journey, I actually went, it showed me my potential. It showed me the story I'm telling myself. By the way, we all have a story we tell
Mm-hmm.
ourselves like
Mm-hmm.
hundreds of times a day. It runs
Yes.
constantly. And
Yes.
that's who we become, right? And that's our limitation, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it comes from childhood, it comes from trauma, it comes from looking in the
Society's
mirror,
expectations. Yep.
or even
Yep.
ours.
Yep.
We look in the mirror and go, oh, you're kind of getting old, or you're getting the
Mm-hmm.
fat. Okay, then you go, I'm fat, I'm fat, I'm fat, or I'm
Yep.
old, and your story is, oh, I'm washed up.
Uh-huh.
So, and, so along the way, I started realizing my potential. And then I started realizing, more importantly, my purpose, right? And my identity. And if any human, that if when we have no reason to get up in the morning, like, what are we doing?
Right.
Right? If there's no purpose, if
Right.
there's no, and in America, especially in the capitalistic world we live in, and nobody tells you this, but I mean, I'm now with the internet and everything, it's so beautiful. But our identity in general, especially mine, was attached to my profession,
Yep.
right? So my identity was, I was a director,
Mm.
cinematographer, whatever. That's who I am. And of course we know that's not who I am. That's what I do,
Yes.
right? Right. But so when my business would do well, it supported and validated
Mm-hmm.
my director, cameraman, identity.
Mm-hmm.
And that, it was really poisonous, right? Because that's going to go away. And when the business starts to hurt in a recession or whatever, I fell apart because
Right.
it was attached to that, right? So I realized that. And when you get into these altered states of consciousness with psychedelics, there is no ego, there is no identity. It's like you're just part of everything, right?
That's the
So,
true thing of collectiveness, right?
well, yeah, it's just
You
it's
see it
it's
so
taking you out of your
often,
head.
the Borg and this and that. Well, that's kind of not quite the collective we're talking about. It's the analogy I drew, we're all in discovery of what our instrument is. And when we find that instrument, we have a connection with it, we learn to play it, and we can do it well solo. But when we
Right.
join the orchestra, and each in our own strengths create a harmony that transcends and
Correct.
ascends everybody to a higher level. That's really what it's all about. It's understanding how our instrument fits in where, and how can we collectively, in all of our strengths, help others rise up to this higher frequency, this higher level, with which we should have done a long time ago. But we, as a human race, have been so stuck in old patterning and the patterning of expectation. You're only important if you are that director, if you are that cinematographer, if you are that model or performer. You're only important if you're rich, or you're only important if you have so many followers. You're only important if you're pretty. And we bought into that crap, and it left everybody empty and seeking. So substituting with alcohol, that was your bravado. That was what allowed you your creativity, because you weren't in the other side of your head. It put you into your creative head rather than that I'm trying to live up to something. And when we stop
Right.
trying to live up to something or someone else's expectation or dictation, as it has become, and we realize that, what instrument am I? How can I
Right.
play this that I'm harmony first to myself? And then
Right.
I can then seek that community where I can bring my instrument, and together we are our strength that then ascends and transcends out that vibration out to everyone else. And
Yeah.
for me, it is getting out of your head altogether, because the head
Yep.
is the nemesis. It's the one that's constantly nah, 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 like a
Yep.
Pac-Man eating away at anything positive. When we trust our feeling and we let it flow through us, when we just allow and let the information flow through us, it connects to our heart. In truth, it's given to our spirit in action, and our minds then know what it needs to know when it needs to know it. And we're now in the knowingness. And in that knowingness, it is so peaceful. We don't need to validate. We don't need to justify. We just are. It just is. And we know it to be that truth.
Yep. Well, beautifully said. Beautifully said. But that's we're tribal, right? We're
Yes.
tribal creatures, right? And this symphony you're talking about is that tribe,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we aren't, modern technology is what, a couple hundred years old, I mean,
Yes.
like
Yes.
it wasn't that long ago when we were living in tribal things, and it worked because any one person that went outside the tribe would not survive, right?
Right.
But if everybody came, in these small tribes, and the magic number is 150 people and under, if each person played their instrument, to your
Right.
analogy, or does their job, the
Everybody had a
hunter,
role.
the enter
Yes.
yeah, everybody has a role, purpose,
Yes.
right? Together, the collective mind, the collective tribe survived, right?
Exactly.
And if
Become
any, and
stronger.
if any,
Mm.
well, it's survived, right?
Yes.
And if one person dropped the ball, the tribe fell apart,
Right.
right? So, it's our job to do that. So, modern society, we've gotten, I could talk about this for days, but,
Mm.
we've gotten off track because, I'll go back to my first ayahuasca story. When I first came out of the ceremony, I was so impressed and so blown away. And I was in that state of bliss and happiness. And I said to the shaman facilitator, I said, how can this be illegal? Like, how is this, like, if every single person did this, there would be no wars, no divorce, no
Right.
anything. And he
Clarity.
looked at me, and he just said, happy people, because happy people don't buy anything. And I was
Mm.
like, bingo, right?
Yes.
They don't.
Yes. Yes.
Because when you're happy inside,
Yeah.
if you're truly happy inside,
You're
and this is the
enriched.
work, this is the work. You will never seek for outside happiness.
Right.
So that means you don't need things. That means
Yeah.
you don't need others,
Mm.
approval. That means, but that's the work, right? Is to
Yeah.
become self-aware, and you have to live with, the values of integrity, the values of
Mm.
doing your best work, the values of not taking things personally, et cetera, et cetera.
And
You
stepping
have to
into
live with
love.
this, but you got to do the work too,
Yes.
and honor it and do it every day. And then this outside world doesn't matter, right? You don't think things personal,
No.
right? so
And yeah.
so
And
if
yeah.
we're lying to ourselves, which
Yes.
is the most common, which was what I was doing,
Yeah. Which
and the
everyone
biggest
does.
Right. And that's the biggest problem, especially in alcoholism. I started lying, and that was really the thing that haunted me, my shame.
Mm,
Right. It wasn't because I'm not by design a liar. But I was lying about drinking, I was lying about things I remembered, whatever, right? So I had to address all this. And when I got into the ayahuasca and psychedelic space, the truth is shown to you.
right.
Like you can't hide it, the truth over and over again, and it sticks with you. It's right here, and you can't get away,
Once you
and you
know,
have
you
to
know.
face it. I
Yes.
mean, in the ceremony, it's like,
Yeah.
hey, 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 hey,
Yeah.
hey, and until you acknowledge it and deal with it, admit it, and break through it, and then start living with what you already know. It's already in you. You already know this information. Then the healing starts, right? You
But
got to be honest. You got to
that's
be
the
straight.
point though, is I've been doing this 11 and a half years. The common denominator is people somewhere along the line receiving a tap on the shoulder, a nudge, nudge, wink, wink, and people not quite getting the message. And along comes the old cosmic two by four in some form or other. But
Yep.
I call that the reset.
Hmm.
And sometimes we need to be broken down to realize what's not working, to look at why was I such a slave to the outside life? And it's that
100%.
connection from within. When we make that connection within, we realize the entire universe is right within us. All the knowledge,
Hmm.
the wisdom, the love, everything we seek, peace, everything is within us at any time, at
Yep.
any place, anywhere. And
Right.
when we get there, then we truly understand. But with each person and the instrument that they are, that is now their purpose. And it is from that space of reset, of regrowth, of of coming out, finding their courage, finding their strength, finding their abilities, finding their inner love, finding their inner healing. They now form something that
That's
now
right.
is of
That's
service
right.
to other people.
That's
They
right.
are the most truest of people because you've literally come back from rebirth.
Right.
And
That's
it's
right.
not a
That's
rebirth
right.
that where
That's right.
you're subject to a parent bringing you up in society bringing up. You're at a
No, no, no.
rebirth where it's your choice,
Right. Right.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a beautiful thing. But to your point, this newfound happiness, this newfound purpose, this new has to be built every single day because you have to build, you've shattered the old
Right.
programming, right? And the danger is like it's massive. It's like 95, 98%, 99% go back to the original programming eventually if they don't stay
Up to a
on their,
yeah, yeah. It's
if
up
they
to a
don't
certain
stay,
point, I think.
because
Yeah,
you have to build, this is science, right?
yeah,
You have to build the new neural pathways in
yes,
the brain over and over and over and over again, just like you're learning how to play piano
right.
until it becomes subconscious. You got to build that
And then
thing.
when you're at that
That's why
level, there will be
then
no
it's
going back.
subconscious.
Yeah,
Well, because now it's a new you.
yes,
But until you
exactly.
get that subconscious or the brain retrained,
Hmm.
now it's like but the good news is about the brain. I'm sure you know who Joe Dispenza is. I've gone through his thing, but he's a science. He's talking the science of it. But unlike a computer, if we no longer think the old thoughts of the old us, is every time they come in our mind and we push them out, push them out, push them out. Eventually, those old neural pathways patterns disconnect.
Yes,
They actually do.
got
A
nothing to
computer does
attach to
obviously.
anymore.
Well, it just falls
Yeah,
because it's. But every time you think about it, you'll
yeah,
do it again, right? So that's why we have to really stay on our game, especially in the first few years, so that we don't go back to baseline OS operating system one that came in before age 7, right?
yeah.
So, and that's very important. So, like, I couldn't get through 9.5 years ago, I couldn't get through an hour without a drink of alcohol, right?
Hmm.
Now I haven't, doesn't even enter. It's like they're so disconnected.
Yeah,
I have alcohol in my house for people to come over, and my interpretation of it is it looks to me like Windex, right? It's
yeah,
that's my. I mean, I don't even. It's like the smell, everything, right? It's
yes,
so those new. The point is those pathways have disconnected,
yes,
right? So I mean, I just got out of my ice bath, my ice plunge. Those neural pathways are strong, right? Because I desire that, right? I
right.
desire breath work. I desire nature. I desire. So, and that's a frequency, right? And
Exactly.
human beings, this is so scientific. We have mirror neurons in our
Mm,
brain. somebody comes into our house, we immediately adapt to that new person in the conversation, right?
Mm.
So every little, the ones we're having now, we're adapting to this conversation, right? So we're
Open
adaptive.
channels. Mm.
We're adaptive creatures, so we have to be very, very careful who we let into our
Very much so.
circle
Yes.
because I mean, this is like super fact, right? I mean, just look like how we adapted through COVID, like that, right?
Yeah.
Whatever, right? One way or the other, so that's why we're still on planet Earth because the human condition adapts faster than any other creature, right?
Right.
So that the old saying is, if you hang around five smokers, you're the sixth, right?
Yes.
If you hang around five yogis, you're the sixth, right?
Yes. Yes.
So
Yeah,
it's a collective energetic frequency of thought, and when we sit down in my house in Topanga, and we sit by the fire, five really intelligent people, we come up with much greater concepts and
yeah.
ideas than we would if we were alone, right?
But
We're a
exactly.
neuron in a new
People,
brain,
you're in tune with each other, right? You're on the
that's what
same.
we do.
Yeah,
That's what we,
exactly.
that's what we do.
Right. So it's a different form of music. It's a different form of frequency. As a spiritual coach of helping people ignite their heart and soul and spirit through my life, I kind of draw the analogy to the ruler. And you have, 6 inch to 12 inch, because I'm an inch, not a metric person, folks, so I'm that age, are people that have already chosen that higher consciousness. They live in that realm of positivity where yes, they recognize problems, but they feed the solutions. And you have those, 4 5s that are in that rebirth, that rediscovery, wanting to leave the negativity of where they've been and want to change. But you have the 1, 2, 3 piranhas, and they're the people that do not want to change. What's wrong with me? Nothing wrong with me. It's your fault, everybody else's fault. No accountability, no responsibility. I'm not willing to put in the work because admittedly it is work. They go after the 4 5s that are regenerating with that
Mhm.
frequency and that higher energy, and they zap them. And there is that 99% people going back to the old patterning because they're around the wrong people. It is essential when you're in this discovery of self, this discovery of a higher plane, to make sure that you are amongst people that are of that higher frequency. And I say to people who are on this discovery, try not to be around many people at all initially. Go to nature. Nature has no agenda. Nature is there to feed you, to support you, to speak to you. It is there to uplift you and help you connect. And when you're with that nature and you realize the trees are speaking to you through the rustle of the leaves, the water against the shore is there to wash away your woes, the wind to clear away the cobwebs and give you clarity, and the bunnies and the birds and everything else, we just begin to feel that frequency, that vibration, that wonderful consciousness that is constantly around us. And we begin to trust ourselves into immersing into it. So it's extremely important when you're on this journey of self-discovery, of this redirect, of rebirth, to make sure you are around the right frequencies in order to
Yep.
not become the statistic to fall back. And sometimes that's hard for people because they have to walk away from loved ones. They have
Yep.
to walk away from the
It's work.
seven-figure job and all of that.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
all those that do say, yes, I was making 500,000 a year, but I had no life. I was a complete slave to the job. I was actually miserable. I lost everybody around me because I
Right.
worked
And
20 hours a
including
day,
including themselves.
including themselves. And this reset, this redirect, they realize now on this path, they are so much more enriched. They are so much more abundant. They are so much more purposeful. And they realize where the peace, the clarity, and the exuberance of life is in that
Yep.
breath, in that silence, in that moment, in that tranquility. For that is where the creative clarity lies.
Correct. Yep. But this is something we forget to talk about. Um, the Earth is a dualistic planet,
Mhm.
right? Meaning we are exactly, it's in balance, right? We are exactly in the same amount of sunlight right in this moment as we are in the night, in the shadow,
Yin
right?
yang.
So every spiritual being, everything in nature is equally as light as it is dark, right?
Yes.
So as the light grows, so does the shadow,
Mm-hmm.
right? And this is the training. So in Kundalini yoga, we talk quite a bit about this. Is yes, you're going to see the bunnies and the butterflies, but you're going to see the wolves and the
Oh,
lions,
yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we cannot be ignorant to the fact that there is piranhas, and
Yes.
as we go up, the moths follow the flame, right? So the yogic practice, the real mental strength. Well, first of all, you have to find your purpose. Once you find
Yeah.
purpose, as the Buddhists say, you are now a stick floating down the stream,
Mm.
right? You're in flow, right?
Yep.
Before, you're the stick trying to swim upstream. You're not.
Right.
You're pushing a boulder up a hill. You're trying to swim across it, right? It's work. You're not getting anywhere. Joe Dispenza calls it matter, trying to change matter.
Mm-hmm.
You want to change it from the quantum, right? So the point is, in this physical being, if we can all agree that the mind controls the body, right? Because the body is an objective observer, the mind. It does
Mm.
not know anything. It only knows what we are telling it. If
Yes.
we are telling it it's sick, it will be sick. If we are telling it it's healthy, it will be healthy. If we're whatever that thought process is, again, a frequency, right? But we cannot be stupid. There is things that are going to take us out, right?
Mm-hmm.
The higher, like, Jesus had to fight the devil, right?
Yeah.
So the himself, right? Because he was the high, so the higher you go, the higher the darkness. So the training is to build your strength, your mental strength, your aura, to be able to be a warrior. Live in a garden, be a warrior in a garden, not a gardener in a war, right?
Right.
You
Exactly.
hopefully you help you never have to pull those things out, but you need the tools, mentally, physically, whatever, to combat the wolves, because they're coming,
And
right? And
to,
we
to
forget
also
that
to
part.
also in the darkness, because I retreated into that darkness for about 8 years of my life, where just through the circumstances, marriage and everything else, my spiritual self was being attacked. And I just couldn't take it anymore. So I retreated. And I was functioning human on the outside, but my soul and spirit was wounded. But there was a light perpetually asking me to come out. And eventually, when I did, it was very bright and a little too
Right,
bright for me.
probably brighter.
Brighter, totally. And then feeling the shadows chasing you. All right,
Hmm.
and think, don't look back. You don't want the shadows pulling you back. I know, keep moving forward. Now I can go into the dark and I enjoy and love the darkness,
Right,
for I am
right,
the light,
correct,
right? And that
correct,
is thing to
right.
gain, going back to what you said earlier, knowing what is fear and what is danger. The
Very
wolves
different,
can be danger,
right?
right? That's common
Very different,
sense of
right?
registering what is there to be afraid of here. But so many people are running on the program of fear and they have no idea what they're afraid of. They're just simply
Right,
afraid of living.
right. Right, and that comes from, childhood. It comes from
Hmm.
listening to our friends complain, but it comes from the media telling us to be
Of
afraid.
course.
I'm in.
Well,
I'm in the media.
that keeps them in control. The more they have you in
Well, of
fear, the
course,
more you're a puppet.
right, and of course they call it television programming for a reason. It
Yes.
programs the mind,
Yeah.
and the science behind it is, there's no such thing as a moving image. It's a bunch of still images that the brain collects, puts together.
Yeah.
And when we look at a flickering screen, we now put the brain in theta state, and when that's a type of hypnosis. That's
Mm.
why we stare at the screen, right? And when you stare at the screen in the theta state, that is when the brain is programmed, right? This
Mm.
is like science, right? So now it's in us, these illusionary fears, these manufactured fears, right? And again, the body doesn't know. So that's why people say, I can't do this or I can't do that. Why? Oh, I'm scared that this and this. I go, where'd you learn that? Like, I
Yes.
go skydiving, I do this, I do all kinds of
Mm.
fearful things on purpose to not only push through the fears, but make sure my brain isn't wired in a way that I don't want it to be wired, right?
Exactly.
So these manufactured fears, and we'll get to the mushrooms in a second. Um, they're 97% of our worries never happen.
Yeah.
Statistic. That is fact, right? Yet they're taking up they're taking up our entire life.
Exactly.
I bet you money you cannot remember what you were worried about 2 weeks ago. I bet money, right?
And
And
what you
then,
were
yep, it's
angry
running
about.
us. It's well, anger's fear.
Yes.
Anger's fear. Every anger, jealousy, frustration, all of those things is fear, right? So all of that is manufactured. 97% of them never come true, right? So they run us. Then the body's afraid. It's in state of fight or flight all the time. And then it's I make the analogy that all our worries or anxieties are windows open on the desktop of your computer. You got
Hmm.
hundreds of them open. They're all taking power. They're all taking your attention. They're sucking up your RAM, your whatever. The computer doesn't work, and the battery dies, right?
Yes.
That's what our brain, and that's running us, right? So, well, let's jump into psychedelics for a second. So, psychedelics, mushrooms, particularly in a microdose form, where a microdose of mushrooms of psilocybin operates in a small dose that we've figured out what works best for our customers, but there's no psychoactive experience.
Right.
You don't see anything or anything, but on a small dose, what it does is it gets in there and starts shutting down these windows,
Right.
right? So as you close these windows, you're just like all of a sudden your peripheral vision opens up,
Yeah.
which in Buddhism is where bliss is. It's
Yes.
this. It's as a camera guy, I'm always like, it's the wide lens,
Yeah.
right? We live our life through the most zoomed lens straw. We're going from one and we're missing, right?
Yes.
So it starts shutting those windows down. It starts zooming back, and the problems disappear. 97% of them aren't going to happen, right? So now you start living in this state of bliss, which by design, we came into this planet blissful,
Yeah.
right? So now we're putting you into your natural state. We're not adding chemicals to alter
Yeah.
the stress. We're not diverting the stress.
Hmm.
We're not using serotonin receptors. We're not noodling that stuff to mess with the serotonin. We're putting you back in who you are, right? And then right there, not only you're more creative, you're more connected, you're paying attention to your friends, you're
That you're
paying
some more
attention to the
calmer.
high. Well, because you're not
Exactly. So you
worried.
you can see things clearer because you're calmer, right?
If I walk up to the average person and said, "How would you feel if I took away all your worries?"
Right, exactly.
Simple. And then the body's going, "Hey man, what's going on? This feels great. Like
I
I'm
feel
happy."
lighter. I feel
Right. And
heavier.
because it's
And if you're
because
fear.
it's not in this fearful
Yeah.
state, which by the way, in nature, if a bear's chasing us, we're gonna freak out and be in that fight or flight stage until the bear goes away, right? The hour, right? But in modern society, we're in this state of worry for decades, right? So the body's in this continual like fight
Because
or
it's
flight. It
one
doesn't know.
bombardment after another,
Sure,
which
sure.
which we don't realize we're being pelted
Right.
all the
Well,
time.
then what does that turn into?
Yeah.
Disease,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Like it turns
Dis-ease.
in heart disease from stress. I
Yes.
mean, a heart disease usually comes from stress.
Yes.
Stress is an
Cancer too,
emotion.
80%.
That's an emotion
Yes.
that is created by us. We are
Yes.
making ourselves sick, right? So if we start taking away these illusionary worries that never happen, not only are we living our best life, and that's just a microdose,
Hmm.
right? Right. So the body, and then you do that long enough, most of our customers, it's crazy. It's not a great business model, but after 4 months of using our microdose, they stop worrying. And then guess what happens? The brain, that because worrying is a habit, it's a
Yeah.
habit. The brain's wired for worrying. Guess what happens? Those neural pathways disconnect and they're not worried anymore. So they don't need it. Right. So
Precisely.
now, and this is what motivates us. Right.
Right.
So,
Well, we never can see the solution. It's like, so when people are worried about everything in their body tenses up. Everything shuts down. There's no
right.
chi,
Because it,
there's no energy, no oxygen, nothing. How can you have any clarity in that state of being? You're talking about taking the breath, opening everything up, loosening everything up, and being able to focus in on what is right in front of you instead of feeling every single muscle in the body tensing up. And when you're taking that breath and you're in that relaxed moment, you suddenly see, gosh, I've been chasing this solution forever. And here it is right in front of me. And I couldn't see it because I was shut down.
Well, you're unaware because the body's just trying to survive. It's just
Yes,
doing its job, right? And listen,
protecting.
we operate from two real main modes. We operate from desperation or inspiration,
Yes.
and when you're in that state, you're desperate, and
Hmm.
you know, at my age, every answer to every problem, every one of them is always right in front of me. It's
Always.
always obvious. It's
Yes.
always obvious. It's like, you're looking around for your keys because you're desperate and you're in that state of worry. And where are they? Right in front of you, right in your
Well, and that's the
pocket.
thing is that when you just, like I have last week on the breath geek, talking about the breath,
Hmm.
the art of breathing, and we all take it for granted. Now, I'm an asthmatic, so I don't take breathing for granted at all. I know what it's like to lose my breath. Um, but so many people don't realize that even just in the sense of being conscious of your breath, slowing down, tuning in, we realize that that clarity we're looking for is always there, but we don't allow it
Right.
because we're too busy in the spiral,
Yep.
right?
I mean, I do breathwork class 3 times a week, heavy duty, 1 hour,
Hmm.
Wim Hof, Kundalini, and then I jump in an ice bath. And if you want to change your world, it's free. It's like, because you're telling the body everything's okay. You're
Yes.
releasing chemicals that just like benzos, all these chemicals that relax us, that make us intelligent, the ones of motivation, norepinephrine, whatever, all these chemicals are released,
Yeah.
right? Naturally. We
Yes.
call it the inside drugstore, right? There's
Right.
lots and lots and lots and lots of drugs at the inside drugstore, right? And we can access them through meditative states. We can access them. Breath work is one of the best. You can access them, just walking around,
Hmm.
being with a loved one, your heart swells, oxytocin, goes on and on. The universe that created us knew what they were doing, right?
Yes.
So these things have been hidden. So let's get into the psychedelics for a moment. I know we could probably talk about stuff forever, but I don't know. I recommend you read a book called The Immortality Key if you haven't already.
No, I haven't
The
read that
the,
one.
the, the Immortality Key. I'm saying this for a reason. Or if you've watched Michael Pollan's recent documentary series on Netflix called How to Change Your Mind. He also had a book that came out. But in these, and then of course there's fantastic fungi and, all this stuff that's come out. But, Michael Pollan is a vetted journalist. He's 68 years old. He's just a
My age.
wise man. Everybody, he's not like some, hippie running around making up stuff. So his documentary series, there's 4 parts. One is he's got the first one on LSD. The second one is on psychedelic mushrooms, psilocybin. The third one is on MDMA, and the fourth one is on mescaline, peyote, and San Pedro. And these are all spiritual practices, right?
Hmm.
LSD, we get, because it's extracted, but it comes from ergot, which is a mold that grows on wheat, right? So it is a natural component of nature, these psychoactive plants. But basically, in the Immortality Key, this guy did 12 years of research. He learned ancient Greek and ancient languages so he could decipher the original text. He
Yeah.
took chemists and he deciphered and analyzed the wines, the potions, etc. Ancient Greece, Jerusalem, whatever, and he found no alcohol. They found many, many, many of these potions and sacraments were full of psychedelics, right?
Hmm.
So the world was, since the beginning, a psychedelic healing world.
Yeah.
Up until AD 480, there was actually a city outside of Athens called Elyssus that was there for 2,500 years that practiced sacred sacraments of psychedelic, uh, ceremonies and whatnot for people to heal themselves mentally, deal with their problems, make decisions as a collective.
Hmm.
Obviously peyote, was done by the tribe, the leaders of the tribe to make a clear decision on the best decision for the collective of the
Hmm.
group, right? So these are spiritual practices, and then we shifted in AD 400 to alcohol. The Catholic Church and diocese came in, destroyed all of that thinking, burned all the texts pertaining to it, and now created alcohol. So we now became an alcohol-based society.
Right.
And how's that going, right? So it's cut because alcohol is the first drug that immediately cuts the cord to the spirit. It
Right.
immediately clogs
Numbs
the
you.
pineal gland. Well, just you're a zombie.
Yes.
Immediately now you're a vehicle. Now you're matter. Now
Mm.
there's no
Hmm.
spiritual component. There's no prana, right?
Yeah.
So,
Humanoid.
and that's there. And that obviously people like us believe that was by design, right? So to be able to be controlled. So anyway, what's happening now is that was not to get too wild out there, but the earth was in a Piscean age. I don't know if you've heard the term Piscean age.
No.
And as we are, I'm a Gemini. I don't know whatever you might be as
Libra.
Libra. Oh, that makes sense. You're bouncing, everybody. But anyway, the Earth has similar characteristics, but they're instead of 28 days of a cycle, it's 2,100 years, and we were in this Piscean age of secrets, control,
Mm.
competition, masculine, aggro, et
Ego.
cetera, et
Hmm.
cetera, et cetera, control, control, control. And this is up for grabs, but somewhere around 1991 to 2011, we transitioned into what we now know as the Aquarian age.
Right.
The Aquarian age is feminine. The
Yes.
Aquarian age is collaborative.
Hmm.
The Aquarian age is transparency, the
Hmm.
internet, right? Information's available to everyone, right? So, and it's also healing,
Yeah.
right? So, and that we can see, you're like what you're doing. This is a
Hmm.
very Aquarian age concept, right?
Which has
So these
started in
concepts
2012.
these concepts apply to what's happening now. So in the psychedelic world, this is why it's coming back, is we are igniting the collective consciousness again. We're igniting who we are. In my industry, it's the first industry I've ever been in. We all are competition. There is no, we all help each other. We share genetics, we share
Exactly.
ideas. This didn't work, this didn't work. They're not our competitors. I have them over here and we work through problems because there's endless business for us because we're
Right.
getting this
Exactly.
so
Yes.
anyway, back to the potential of psychedelics and the psilocybin experience and whatever, these plants, these funguses, these things were obviously given to us to help us as humans, connect to the universal, being that we are. It's a biohack.
Yeah.
Yes, in the Kundalini practice or Tibetan Buddhism, we can do it naturally, but you got to sit in a cave for months to do it. We want a quick, thing.
Well,
So
we really do need that consciousness rising. We don't
yeah,
actually,
yeah,
we as a human race, we cannot afford the time of natural evolution. We are needing
right,
that kick in the butt,
right, right.
so to speak, because we're so incredibly destructive. And if we do not change that consciousness, we will obliterate ourselves
Well, that's
out
what
of
we're
being,
doing. That's what we're
which
doing.
is
But
what
that's a
we're doing, and
that's
the planet
that's
and
a
everything
that,
else.
well, but that's a Piscean way of thinking, right?
Hmm.
So all the Piscean ways of thinking of businesses, governments, schools are failing, right? Shared
Absolutely.
services, open source, that's a
Hmm.
Aquarian psychedelic type way of thinking. These
Yes.
ideas came about through psychedelics.
Right.
I know people that start these, the iPhone was invented on an LSD journey, right? Because it's a different way of thinking, right? So those forms of businesses, Airbnb, Uber, whatever, would never have survived 20 years ago because
No.
who gets in a car with a stranger, right?
Right.
But now,
Exactly.
but now it's common thing, right? And we
Mm.
share it, shared services, right?
Because we
Share,
know
share,
that
share.
by sharing, we expand. There's two
Well, but
words I
that's a
don't
different,
like. I don't like
that's a different,
competition. I don't like comparison. Do not compare yourself with anyone else. You are a unique instrument. How you play that instrument is your unique
right,
frequency. It's your
right.
signature. And this competing, leave it to the games.
That's old. That's
Life
old,
is not that game. It's been played as a
right,
game, and there's only been a few winners and a lot of losers. And it's not about that. That
right.
collaboration, that unity, that community in that strength, we realize that it's not about one huge big community. It's all these beautiful pockets of orchestras around the world playing different types of music, different types of food, different types of views, because in those beautiful different perspectives, we all learn and we go, that perception would go very well over here. Thank you. How
right.
about I share this
And that,
perception
but
over
again,
there?
that's tribal, right?
Yes.
That's tribal, right? And that's how we operate, right?
Yeah.
So we're very excited to be pioneers in the new, it's, we're taking, so in this new revolution of everything, blockchain is a it's, I don't want to use a psychedelic concept, but those ideas come to you when you're in this thing, but there's no central authority, right? In
Right.
blockchain, right? It's a format, nobody's in charge, but it works.
It's
Everybody
the collective is in charge. It's
It's
the
the
collective
collective.
consciousness.
That's
Yes.
right. That's
Hmm.
right. So that's what I'm trying to say. So back to what we're doing here is, first of all, okay, so what frequency does, I mean, maybe the viewers made it this long through your podcast to see
My
what
podcasts are
we're
all long.
talking
Those are
about.
my kind of listeners. Bless you,
Yeah, yeah,
listeners.
yeah. So it's not like we were boring or anything.
No.
But okay, so what I've been at this 5 years, very hard, very difficult. I had to learn it, I shut it down many times. We were growing when it was really highly looked at and scary legally, and we didn't know, so we were taking lots of risks. I started using mushrooms for my own depression and my own reprogramming the mind to keep my mind at bay. Because, my full honesty is my mind starts jumping away, man, and I got to pull it back in every day, right?
Yes.
So at least I'm
I've got a
aware of it.
constant movie going on the side.
Yeah, and you're in it, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. So and we can talk about that in a second, but so what I do to kind of keep it at bay is I would have a couple mushrooms and I'd go for a hike and take my dog, and I mean 10 years of therapy, bam, right? And then I'm feeling good, I get clarity, right? So that was one of the things I did to
You're
maintain.
centered. You're backing the core of you.
Yeah, and well,
Yeah.
I just shut off the noise, and the
Right.
noise is an illusion. It's static,
Right.
like it's static. You're on the wrong
Yes.
channel, whatever you want to call it. It's
Switch
making you
channels.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and is it? I mean, Yogi Bhajan, Kundalini, they're like, hey, your mind is not even yours. Like
Hmm.
those thoughts are not even yours, right? So they're running you, and they're not even yours, right? So I start slowing down the mind, and then I went, I did a ceremony, and it was shown to me. I mean, I'm a director, right? And all of a
Yes.
sudden in ceremony, it's showing me, hey, this is something you should do. Get into it. And I was like, what? Growing mushroom? I'm like, what? Are you kidding? So anyway, I got into it. I mean, it was wild, wild west back then. We were growing in jars. I
Had to
had
start somewhere.
20 pressure cookers going. I had all these guys, and we're learning, but there was nothing on the internet how to do it. We're just failing and getting condemned. Some success, we're doing it under a deck. I felt like a meth lab. It's like really crazy, right? The neighbors are like, why is there 20 pressure cookers? So anyway, I was managing it, but I wasn't, there's a lot of systems to learn. I was working on, the
Well, you were
running
being
it.
the director, the writer, the cinematographer, the
Well,
actor,
yeah,
the
but I
everything,
wasn't
right? There are the
doing
roles that you had to learn.
right, but I wasn't, cleaning the grain. I wasn't
Mm.
doing the substrate. I had other people doing that because it's a lot of physical work. I'm telling you this for a reason. So we would get contamination, get wiped out. We'd get this trouble wiped out. Of course, everybody's blaming everybody else. Lots of drama. I throw another 50 grand in, wiped out, and throw another 30, wiped out. And then I partnered with some other folks that were all about money, some of the people in the marijuana space. And anyway, that was a disaster. So I shut it down for like the sixth time. I'm up now. My price tag's 150 grand I've lost, and I was so traumatized. I took all the equipment. I have a bell tent on my property. I threw it all in there, and I was like, I'm gonna burn it. Like I'm not ever. Don't ever talk to me about mushrooms. I don't know how to do it. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. And I tell you this for a reason. So then a very well-known shaman came through town, and he was like, "Can I use your place, my house in Topanga, for a ceremony?" And I said, "Sure, of course." So I sit in this ceremony. I wasn't planning on really going in deep. I was just kind of helping him out. Anyway, I drink just a tiny bit of the medicine, and tiny, not nothing that normally would launch anybody. And if you've ever done psychedelics or ayahuasca, we refer to the messenger as the mother. It's
Mm-hmm.
called Mother Ayahuasca, right? Anyway, it takes me, launches me, and the mother grabs me and says, "Hey, we've been looking for you." And I was like, "Oh no, don't. I'm not. I don't want a journey." She's like, "No, you're having a journey. You're having a journey. You've been avoiding us. Here's the deal." And I mean, that's how it talks to you. Here's the deal. You're getting back into mushrooms. I'm like, "No, I'm not. No, I don't have any money. I can't. I'm gonna get busted. Whatever." She's going, "No, no, no, no. You're not listening. You were failing because you weren't working with mindful people. You were
Mm,
failing because you were not growing up. You had people doing it. You need to do it. The mushrooms want to talk to you.
right.
The
Your
mushrooms help.
frequency. Mm,
Well, the mushrooms helped you get through your depression,
right.
your suicide, your
Yep.
alcoholism, your problems, your messed up mind. You need to do it." And then it went on, and then it showed me this montage of, this is how I can't describe it, a psychedelic experience in language, but it showed me
Yes.
this montage of, death, destruction, disease,
Mm,
control, like children being harmed. It was like, she was like, "This is who you'll be helping with this if you work with mindful people. This is a medicine. Yes, it can be used for fun, but medicine, healing. The world needs healing." And I'm like, "Oh my God." And then she goes, "Yeah, we know you're scared. Yeah, we know, but just listen, if you do it with mindful people with the proper intention, we will protect you."
right.
So that was beautiful. So I get out of this and I'm like, "What?" And then I'm thinking about how I'm going to do it. And then 2 weeks later, I think it was, the pandemic hit. I
Mm,
mean, she was showing me the pandemic.
right.
And the
Yes.
first time in my career, I had a huge television show in a long time, huge television show lined up, a giant movie. I was going to be set financially for the first time in a long time. Gone. Bam.
Yeah.
Everything gone.
Mm-hmm.
So I took a breath and went, "Okay, I guess I know what I'm doing."
Mm-hmm.
So I started back up really small. I started back up on site. I was, and I was the only employee. I had to figure it out. So
Yes.
I had the equipment in the shed or the tent. I started breaking it out. I started watching more YouTubes. I started calling buddies that I knew. Like, I got my hands dirty for a very long time. I started learning every single process. And by the way, it's all different wherever you grow it. It adapts. The mushrooms are smart. If you don't do
Mm-hmm.
this. So I got my hands dirty for 2 years, and then I had, one other person start helping me, and I was doing everything, failure, and it was still stressful because we had to noodle our methods and learn and change, and we had to do it on our own experimentation because it's an 11-week process. So if you do something wrong at the beginning, you don't really
Yes.
know it until 11 weeks. So anyway, years and years of that, and then I started doing my own genetics. I have a laboratory, and to make a long story short, I had to learn what's the saying. You have to give it your path or whatever, your career, at least 10,000 hours, right? And I did like 15. I'm up to like 18,000 hours. And anyway, so along the way, these downloads of ideas of how to grow the medicine came in, and one was frequency, right?
Yes.
So because I don't want to use the word competition, but pharmaceutical companies, marijuana companies have gotten on board that this is the new thing, and they have tons of money and tons of scientists, and they're cranking out these genetically modified psychedelic mushrooms in warehouses and trailers with dark energy and dark,
Yes.
it's not positive, right?
No. No.
So
It's
I'm
all
like,
about
you
the
can't.
bottom line. Mm,
Well, right, you can't do that. This is
no.
intelligence. This is
Yes.
wisdom. You're
Right.
just, and then the mushrooms don't even, they look like, it's like a tomato used to be this big. Now they're, there's no intention in any of it. And that's flooding the market. And I was like, "No, we're growing for healers. We're growing for shamans. We're growing for microdoses. We're growing for people that struggled, with what I'm doing, what I went through. We're coming at, so we have a whole surround sound system in our colonization
Mm,
room and our fruiting room that is frequencies of all the chakras. We have all the frequencies
yes.
of the emotions of love, and we pump it in
Yes.
loud, 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 right? And now I've befriended some of the best geneticists and mycologists in the country, and they give me they give me the genetics because they know what I'm doing and they
Right.
want to help, right? And that's one of the toughest parts. So now we have the best genetics and by far the best environment, and it's just like people. You get a really good,
Yeah.
kid, but they're grown up in a wrong environment or bad, So anyway, and so now I attend. I just went on a. I was invited to a ceremony that they were using my medicine, and I just stood in the background and went through the whole ceremony. And at the end, we had a sharing circle. Nobody knew who I was, and they were sharing about their experience, and they were like, something in the mushrooms, like when I went into my deep journey, I saw this, and then there's a playlist usually of sound, and when the sound went to this note, I saw this and this, and it was the most beautiful thing. And they said usual mushrooms will take me in a dark area, and they'll feel anxious. And these were so clean. I got no nausea. I got no this independently, independently, independently. So there's something to it. There's some
Yes.
science in there. And so anyway, I know we're probably running out of time, but
But you know,
um,
the the
you know,
the, the thing about the music is that for me, I find I suffer from deep depression, so I know what it's like feeling somebody's come into your gut and pulls it out and despair. There is no reasoning, no logic, no rationale. You're just in absolutely devastating despair. And when I know that that is coming on, I have to surround myself with frequency of music. And it's not the words that are being sung, it's the music itself. And I've
sure,
just, discovered that it resets me. It rebalances me. So music is that rhythm. We are rhythmic creatures. We're meant to be in flow. We're meant to be in rhythm with ourselves, with our chakras. I'm glad you brought that up because all of our chakras, chakra straight breathing is good. If they're all ignited, they've all got a role to play, each one of our chakras. The color that we wear, the surroundings that we have, the food that we eat, everything is of vibration. And when we kind of tune in and literally do use the music, it is something that can reset you and reset the scene in which you want to be in. So it's
hmm
that frequency is, but you can get it sometimes just even the tweets of the birds suddenly, or the rustle
yeah,
of the leaves, and the frequency of it at that time is just
hmm
exactly what you need. What we don't do as these humanoid things is that we don't pay attention. We're constantly chasing an illusional solution instead of looking at Mother Earth along with Father
Well, yeah, I
Sky gave
mean,
us
yeah,
everything. All we
for
have to do
sure,
is pay attention to it and
right,
be willing to step out of our ignorance and be exploratory into something because it's all about self-discovery of who am I, why am I, what is my instrument, what is my purpose here,
right.
right?
But I
And we
mean,
need help in getting there.
that's what out here they've been popular for a long time, but that's what a sound bath is.
Yes.
you know I mean, those instruments are tuned for different parts of the body, right?
Yeah.
So when your chakras are in tune, they're all, as we know scientifically, Joe
Yeah.
Dispenza, that there's scientific, this is what the frequency of this chakra,
Yes.
and when they're all in tune, it's like you're strumming a tuned guitar,
Yeah.
right? And then you really can't download or tune in if it's out of tune, right?
Exactly.
So this
Yes.
is
They're
information.
knocking at
And
the door, but you're
now,
unable to open up that door until you've got the
I mean,
alignment
when
there.
you and sound creates an emotion. If
Yes.
the yogic science, which is now regular science has proven it, but they've always known it, is every sound wave, every wave
Hmm.
creates or carries information,
Exactly.
right? So, because it's a wave, it cannot move without some sort of information, right?
Yeah.
So if you hear the
Nothing is a
sound,
straight line.
if you hear country and western music with that creates one emotion, right, which is a frequency. Again, your brain, the thought is a frequency, so you'll feel sad or happy or whatever, and you hear the same basic sound structure with rap music,
Yeah.
you're going to get a very different message. You're
Right.
going to get different information, right? So to your point, like every person's vibrating differently, and when you're in tune, if the wrong person sits next to you, your stomach will
Yes.
get not up, right?
Yes.
That is the vibration of that person. If you're drunk, you won't feel it, but right, if you're tuned in, that's your nature, that's your natural defense system going, that's not right for me. right? And the opposite happens if you're attracted to somebody that could be your mate or whatever. You get butterflies and you get this
Mm,
sense of warm and you get this sense of safety. That's a vibration,
yeah.
right? So all of this is, yes, of course we're all vibrating, but our diet in life is not our food, right? It's our, of course, it's our food, which, as you mentioned, has a vibration, but is what do we watch?
Yes.
That affects the mind.
Yes.
What do we listen to? Right? Well, who do we hang out with? Where do we live? Those are all vibrations that are part of your overall diet. Because if you're not, you can eat all the best food in the world, but if your thoughts are off, it's not going to work.
It's
You know,
the
we
algorithm of life, right? It's the same with social media. If you're feeding and participating in the uplifting of each other and not going down the conspiracy damning hate rhetoric, what you feed and what you seed, what you water, what you nurture is going to grow. Be very mindful of what you are seeding.
yes, but that's our responsibility, and that's where
Yeah.
wisdom comes in, right? When I
Yes.
look at when I look at my Instagram feed, it is a direct reflection of my mind.
Yeah,
When
me
you
too.
look at your Netflix queue, that's a reflection of you, right? The computer or the algorithm has picked it, but
Mhm.
it knows what you're looking at. You
Yes.
might be telling your friends you're this and you're this and you're this, and then you open up your Instagram feed and it's hot girl, hot girl, hot girl, you know, then that's the
Yes,
real one, right? That's what you're paying attention to. So social media used properly is the most powerful tool that we have.
absolutely.
Mine's full of spiritual stuff. The
Yes.
masters. I learned things from the masters. I learned new techniques in filmmaking, psilocybin, mushrooms, like how to do this better, who to connect with, these collective operations, these new legalities. Everything I learn online, right?
Because
I'm using
that
it to
is
my
the gift.
advantage.
Exactly. Right.
That's the collective
Anything
shared
used wrong
consciousness.
is going to be against us. Anything used
That's
right is going to
right.
help advance us. It's a
Always
question of our conscious choice. And
right.
in the beginning, you may not look at my life, the alcoholism for other people, cancer or marriage or something, a wrong job, right? They realize that is not working for me. I
No,
do not feel anything. So it is, how do you detach and how do you rebirth into this other thing? You have to be present. You
it's
have to be
awareness,
conscious of it.
awareness.
The
Right.
more you are conscious and aware of what you are feeding, which means instead of all the screens, as you were talking about, but focusing in on the one screen in front of you, now you can actually give it your time and energy. Let it root,
Well,
right?
because it
Let it grow.
resonates with you. Yeah.
Exactly. And then
Right.
go on to the next and the next. Don't have it all open at the same time. You're trying
No.
to feed everything because now
Right.
you're scattered. Focus that energy, make it a conscious choice to want to grow, to enlighten, to ascend to that higher plane of frequency and consciousness, because that's where we're meant to be. And when we
Hmm.
choose to be there, we are so much more attached now to the universal knowledge and wisdom that we realize we've been living a very, very submissive
Lim
life,
yeah, limited. But
very
to your
limited.
yeah, but once you do something consciously enough, it becomes subconscious. So
Yes,
then once it's subconscious, that's when it
yes,
starts coming to you,
yes.
right? It starts
The
coming to you,
knowingness,
right?
I call it,
Right. Shut off the noise,
Yeah,
man.
yes,
You got to
exactly.
shut the noise off. So,
Yes,
yeah, that this is so our whole purpose here, and
is to
at a
open
whole
people up.
right, but open them up safely,
Yes,
right? Because then people want to know where their medicine's coming from, which is super valid
yeah,
because there is agenda behind these things, right?
right.
And if you're partaking in psychedelics that affect the mind like no other chemicals,
Hmm.
right? And they're not dialed in, it's going to shift your mind in the improper way, right?
Right.
But psychedelics used properly that are natural, used properly, are by far the most, you know,
It's breaking through the crap.
it's the most beautiful
Yeah,
things I've ever seen, and my potential's unlimited. And the only thing limiting me is
yes.
me,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. It just
And
it
but
just
I
cuts
have to
away through
do
the
the
crap.
work.
Yeah, exactly. Because why do people not do the work? Half the time they just simply don't know how. I have
Yeah,
intention
I
to
buy
change
some
the
of that.
journey. But no, I mean, maybe they've never known about the psychedelics other
Right.
than hearing about LSD and the bad trips. Now you're
Well, that's a
saying to them,
programming from the government.
I know, but
Yep.
until there's a reason why I do these shows is bringing people
Right.
on like you saying, I have a safe avenue for you. It is an
Yes.
awakener. What is my role in life is to awaken the hearts and
That's
souls
right.
and
Right.
ignite the spirit, right? So it is all about us raising our whole vibration up to a higher consciousness. And if we feel no, there's just too much static. I just can't do it on my own. But my intent is I wish to. I wish to
Right.
break through. Then you've created that world where they can break through that crap, that barrier, that membrane that's holding them back.
Right.
And once
Right.
they've stepped into that clarity and they've been able to see what really it is they're seeking, now they can be more motivated in looking at how to pursue that to find their meaningful purpose. So
Correct.
you're a door opener for them.
Well, yeah, and here's the thing: we have to trust it
Yes.
because here we've been programmed as I was. This is why I'll say it again. You a must watch for your viewers if they haven't seen it is the documentary series How to Change Your Mind
Mm.
because he talks about the lies the government told us of these things because they knew that if they had LSD, like when LSD came out in the 60s, they
Yeah.
gave it to soldiers to test it and the soldiers would not take orders. They
Ah,
wouldn't obey. They wouldn't
right.
obey, right? And if you look at it, what really happened was all of the best music and art and
Yes.
ways of thinking came out of
Yes.
LSD, right?
Yes.
Okay, but what else came out of LSD? It was in mostly in San Francisco and all those genius guys from Harvard and all these schools. They were all deep in LSD. They were doing it every weekend. They would go up into the mountains and get these cabins and study and write philosophy. And you have
Uh-huh.
Terence McKenna and you have these guys and they invented a machine that proved quantum physics,
Mm-hmm.
right? That came out of these
Mm-hmm.
hippies, but they
Mm-hmm.
put it together in a barn, right? So they
Right.
they were accelerating more than the regular scientists, right?
Yes.
Guess what else came out of that? Computers.
Yes.
All those guys that started Apple and all those guys, they're leftover LSD geniuses from that time. So it shifted to consciousness like I said, the phone was built on an LSD journey. Like the Da Vinci was doing LSD,
Mm,
right? All these guys, because you can see the world and solve problems from so many different perspectives, right?
exactly.
And they come to you. I've solved so many problems. I've come up with so many ideas, and now I just walk around all day, and my ideas just pop into my head of what to do, and it's like fucking genius. Like, why didn't I think of that? It's like, right? So that is what's changing the world and that's in this documentary because, like my shaman said, happy people don't buy anything. And
Right.
a capitalist economy needs you to buy stuff constantly for
Oh,
it to
and be
survive.
dependent on it.
Constantly.
Be dependent on it. But
Well,
all of this
right.
is
And it's
is
all going
you're
in your
only going to
garage.
be happy if you are dependent on this, right? And
Right.
so when we say, no, I choose my happiness, I choose my meaningful purpose by going in to find out what it is from the inside out. This is where all the information is. Right? I'm willing to do the work, and that is my choice. It's my free will, and nobody has the right to tell
But you
me
have to
what
be
else to
you
do
have
it.
to be you have to be aware of that.
Enlightened. Yes.
You have to. So I'm sure we're running out of time, but okay, I've made over I don't know 3,500, 4,000 commercials in my career, right?
Right.
So, and I didn't realize this until later. When I'm creating a commercial to sell you something, first order of business. I have to create a sense of lack in you,
Yes.
a sense of lack that you aren't good enough,
Without
that
it.
you need this bottle of water.
Uh-huh.
It's water, right? It's friggin' water, but you need this one with this sexy, bright colored label.
Right.
And this hot girl is dumping it on her hair, and this dude is drinking it at the beach. And then we create the motion of that sense and
Mm,
lack in you. You need to drink this water. There's 500 waters, but this one is going to make you have that lifestyle,
exactly.
right? And then you buy it with money, that You
You
really
don't
don't
have.
have, you don't need it. And now you're in a credit card thing, and now it's a whole other thing. But how many pairs of shoes do you need? How many
Yeah.
houses do you need? How
Yeah.
many cars do you need? Right? So the more established we become happy with ourselves, my car does its job,
Yes.
right? I have no, in my age, and gone through what I've gone through and been successful and rich and girls and boats and houses everywhere. I don't need that.
Yeah.
I don't need to prove anything to anyone, right? I am good. You are good as you are, right? We can always be better, but we're working on it every day. So, but I don't have to prove to the world with my watch or my shoes or my
Right.
car or my thing that I'm insecure, because that's what that is, right? So,
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
that is terrible for business,
Right.
terrible for business,
Yeah.
right?
But
So
we've also come to the illusion that if we're not conducting business and not generating money, then we as a human race are not going to survive.
that's old thinking,
Old thinking.
because that represents safety,
Yes.
right? Right. We want to feel safe, right? And a nice house with money in the bank, used to be, the
Security.
guy. Used to be the guy that could kill the most bears. You want to hang out with him or marry him because he's safety, right?
Right.
Survival. The kids survive. The family survives. If he leaves, abandonment, right? But now it's money, right? Money solves problems. Money
Mm.
keeps you out of trouble, right? So yes, we need it, and but it's how do you use it? Back to the social media thing, that
Yes.
when I get money, I put it back into the business because
Right.
that spreads the message more. I put it back into events. I put it into experiences to teach. I put it into that because possessions are not, they're like the old Buddhist saying, you don't own things, things own you, right?
Yeah.
The more stuff you have, the more problems you have, and then that's a distraction of getting in my way of trying to get what I'm doing out. So the whole purpose of this podcast, the whole purpose of what I'm doing every morning is getting the medicine out to the people that you just described, to just
Opening up
wake them
that
up.
door, breaking
One
up the barrier, right? Yes.
one mushroom journey, can break it open, and all you
Yes.
got to do is see it once, and then you go, wow,
Now I understand.
wow,
Yeah.
wow,
Yeah.
this is, I, wow. And then you can start going from there.
But again, I think the people that do this have to actually understand that we are each responsible for our own choices and we're all accountable for our own actions. And that in doing this and waking up and stepping into ourselves and our meaningful purpose is something you don't hand off to someone else. This is your role in life. This is the reason why you're here. And you've got to be willing to allow and be dedicated to the role that you've been given, the gift that you've been
Yes,
given.
yes,
Because
yes.
the gift bag, I've been doing this 11 and a half years, 10 years with my own network. I get shut on all the time because I don't charge. I do everything by free will donation, right? And I perceive myself as very enriched and abundant for the work that I do, for the platform that I have, and getting this wisdom out to people who are ready to receive it, right?
Right. You have
It,
to be ready. Yep.
but for getting how many listeners, how many of that, and I got all those that are ready to hear.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
all I can do is put it out. It's all
It'll
those that
get
are
out.
ready to hear, all those that are ready to take that psychedelic journey to break through because they've tried
Mhm.
everything else and they know they need to break through because they know they're ready.
That's great. And then, the old saying, when the student
Yeah,
is ready, the teacher appears, right?
exactly.
Right. And by the way, you you've redefined abundance as I have.
Hmm.
We have this illusion abundance is money. No, like I had money and I was alone. I'm wherever I am financially, I have 1,000 people around me,
Hmm.
right? We built this community
Yes,
of helping each other, hundreds, right? Hundreds. And I have a grandson and I have a son, and we're talking again through
yes,
psychedelics. Like
yes.
I couldn't have conversations with my son, and now we did, like, it's crazy. Our last Thanksgiving, we did a couple mushrooms with him and his wife, and we went hiking with my dog. Oh my God, it was 30 years of family therapy gone. I mean, it was just,
Yeah,
now we talk all the time, and we're It's just beautiful. So from my own life experience, and by the way, on that note, I am available when you go to the website. I don't know where you're going to put it on this thing.
It,
I do
it's
talk.
it's
I
everywhere.
do I do talk to people if they email me. I do talk to them. I respond to every email. Like, what are you going through? This is not a magic bullet.
Yeah.
Like, use this. We have this protocol. We have protocols. This is how you do this. This is how you do this. This is how you do this. If you're on antidepressants, you do this. If you want to get out. So I am open to. We've created a whole YouTube channel that asks most questions. We have a frequently FAQ list of things to answer, but I'm also personally available for a conversation with anybody that's struggling and wants to know,
Is
whatever
this for
else.
them?
I'm
Yeah.
open. Yes. So
And they can
this
get
is, yeah,
hold of you at frequency caps,
ed-
CAPS, at gmail.com. And your
correct,
website is frequencycaps.com. Same with your
correct,
Instagram and your YouTube.
correct. Yeah.
And of
But
course, so
if you go to the website, the little icons of the YouTube and Instagram are on there as well. But we're
right.
always doing educational stuff on the Instagram every day, new stuff, what's going on, new genetics we're doing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. So,
And of course, you come to selfdiscoverywisdom.com and put in James Cannon, Cannon, and his entire show page comes up with everywhere that you can listen to it, all his links and everything else that he's written here as well. Because we want to share it out, and you can hear it on 16 audio platforms, 2 video platforms, and represented on 4 sites and many social medias. And share. I'm very much about people having podcast parties. Listen to the same podcast, take notes, come together and share what each of you got from it. Because this person has this highlight, that person has this, and when you put it together on the table, you've got a bigger picture. You got a bigger picture of understanding because you've shared what each one of you discovered within the podcast. So have podcast parties, folks. You have big book clubs, have a podcast club and get the conversation going and share. When something inspires you, please share it because you don't go, well, I don't know if anybody would be into this. I mean, should I even put out the psychedelic mushroom type thing? And then, you know what? Put it out there and say, this is what it did for me. It's up to you what it does for you. But I'm willing to share it. Stop being scared of what other people think. If you're inspired, inspiration begets invitation. Share that inspiration because now you're inviting other people to discover for themselves.
well said.
Thank you for sharing today. I mean, really, you've gone lovely in depth and you've taken the journey. And it is, and I can tell you this 99% of the people I've interviewed, the people that are out doing the greatest work are the people that had the cosmic 2x4, that had the complete redirect to the complete rebirth. They went through the struggles, and some of them are just some of the horrific things that have happened to them. But they chose to take another path. They chose to rise up and go on a different frequency and a different consciousness. And whom they're serving today because of it is exemplary, is extraordinary. And my hat off is always to people that have known the suffering and you didn't give up and you didn't give in. Instead, you redirected to that meaningful purpose that is of service now to us as a humanity. And my God, do we need to break through? We need to break
Thank
through.
you.
So
And you know what else? You know what
take the
else?
journey.
It's a lot of fun too.
Yes.
I'm having a lot of fun.
When you get up every day and you look forward to what you're doing or meeting that next person and seeing their enlightenment, or just, for me, I don't get to see the results, but I just know that what I'm putting out, it's going to serve someone. It's going to open somebody up. And just knowing
Yeah,
that is the reason to get up, right?
feels good.
Yeah, it does. Thank you so much for sharing with us here today.
Yes, thank you.
Frequencycaps.com, folks, and you can reach them by email and Instagram and everything else. If you're not too sure and you need to have that conversation, please reach out, have the conversation. This isn't kind of taking you on a trip that's going to blow your mind. What it's going to do is blow away the crap, and it's going to give you that clean slate for which now you can see the real reason why you're here and what you're here to do. And isn't that something we all want? We all need help in raising that consciousness. Let's look for a little help here that can just blast out blast out all that we do not need so we can step into who we really are and what we're really here for. Thank you so much. Until next time, folks, bye for now. We hope that you enjoyed the show. There are so many more for you here on selfdiscoverywisdom.com. Just go to the podcast tag at the top there and you will see all the many genres and all 3,000 shows ready for your listening. We are here to serve you, to help you on your journey of life, and we know that through inspiration it begets invitation. We are supported by you, the listeners, and those that we interview. Anything that you can spare us in donation would be greatly accepted, and we do hope that you enjoy the next show.